Alright. So, Assalamualaikum and greetings to Dr. Norhafilah as our lecturer. And today we are going to present our Task 3 oral presentation for the subject language assessment. And let me introduce you to the presenters of today's presentation. The first one is me, myself, Yasmin. And also we have Shahida Annisa. And the last presenter is Tze Yie. Okay, let's proceed to the first slide. Okay, so this is the table of contents of today's presentation. The first one is we are going to look into the emerging issues related to school-based assessment, SBA, documents and procedures in Malaysian primary ESL classrooms. We also are going to look into the reasons for existence of the issue. And the last one is the solution, which are the constructive suggestion and alternative solutions to improve the highlighted issue. So next, on the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about what is school-based assessment, or the abbreviation is SBA. So basically, school-based assessment (SBA) is actually an assessment that requires teachers to monitor students' learning progress, evaluating students' performance, recording students' progress, and providing feedback from time to time. So if we can relate it to our time during secondary school, we actually gone through PBS. In Bahasa Melayu, it is called PBS, Pentaksiran Berasaskan Sekolah. So according to Ahmad and Warti 2014, SBA is actually launched to assess students holistically as a whole through their intellectual, emotion, spiritual, and physical aspects. So it does not really only focus on the intellectual of the students, but also look into the aspects of the physical. And also, in order to produce students with higher competency, SBA will be included with more questions that require them to practice higher order according.
So, for emerging issues related to school-based assessment, documents and procedures in Malaysian primary ESL classrooms. Number one is lack of knowledge or competency in teachers. Teachers who have more experience or seniority do not necessarily prove that they have been successfully carried out assessments over the years. New teachers have no experience to do an assessment for the students, meaning they may learn about assessments, but they haven't tried it with students yet. So the second one, I'll leave it to Yasmin.
All right, so the second emerging issues that is based on the school-based assessment is the lack of resources or time in teachers' planning. So basically, in this aspect, teacher has the responsibility. We all know that teacher actually has a lot of responsibility, and one of it is to properly plan an assessment before conducting the assessment. So basically, teacher has the responsibility to plan properly before conducting the assessment. They cannot do the assessment as they wish. And according to Isonas and Christie 2009, claim that teachers in Malaysia do not seem to take this matter of planning seriously. So this, from their perception, they think that Malaysian teachers pay less attention in planning their assessment, then when they administer the assessment, it will take place smoothly. And then also, other than that, teachers in Malaysia also perceive SBA as something similar to summative test, but actually it is not. It is very in contrast. And also, teacher actually faces time constraints to meet all of their responsibilities, including managing SBA. Because like we all know, SBA is very time consuming. It requires a lot of time to plan, to administer, and to also assess the students.
The next issue will be lack of computer and internet facilities. So most of the schools in Malaysia, they have poor ICT facilities provided for both the teachers and the students. So as for teachers, the issues that they are facing is limited amount of computer for their use. For example, when teachers needs to teach a lesson that uses ICT, or when they need to key in students' data into the computer, they face poor internet connection and also overloading of keying in system. So according to a research by Pink 2020, even though the teachers they took initiatives, that is they brought them their own laptop to school. However, they still um so cannot find a solution to this problem because of the poor internet connection in school. As for students, they can only perform limited amount of skill in lesson. For example, when an activity that is created is meant to let all pupils carry out using their own computers, each pupils will be assigned with one computer. However, due to the limited numbers of computer, they cannot perform the skill or lesson effectively.
So the second one, we are going to talk about reasons for the existence of the issues. Okay. Number one, teachers' attitude towards change. Now we talked about teachers' lack of competency. Okay, first, experienced teachers refuse to accept the shift to SBA as they are so used to the former way, where they think whatever they have done in the classroom is good enough. We are talking about experienced teachers because they're used to the formal assessment, they're not used to SBA, so they think that I think what I did is right enough. Why would I change it for SBA? Now, the second one is teacher with more experience would feel more stressed with the upcoming changes in terms of workload and assessment because of they have so much experience with the assessment before, and then they suddenly have, well, not suddenly, but they have to adjust a different assessment. It can be a bit tiring because now they have to leave out the assessment they have done before, and then they have to double the amount of work because they have to adjust to the SBA. And some teachers will have a difficult time to adjust the change with SBA as they are teaching. Now, there will be a chance that a teacher would be interested in SBA, but it would take time for them to adjust to the changes in assessment because sometimes there are things that we are not used to, and sometimes there are things they don't get it or they never experience it, and it's hard for them to experience with students unless they need to make mistakes. The second one is new teachers inexperience with SPA. Now, new teachers have no knowledge or experience with preparing an assessment for students. They might have learned SPA in their institute or university before, but for testers, they might, for assessment, they maybe have to experiment it with their friends or colleagues. So they never experience it with students. It's a different kind of experience, so they don't know how to do it properly. Now, according to Turnstile 2001, for teachers who had to just join the teaching field, assessment is not an easy task for them. Now, we need to remember that assessment is like testing the students' skills and their capability or their knowledge from the subject that we are teaching. So it's not easy for us to make an assessment just easy like that. We have to consider many things, and this is just from a student's point of view. From a teacher who just came in, it might take a lot of time. They need to understand the students. They need to know a lot of things like what are the objectives, how would they do the assessment, not to mention SBA assessment on the students. Now, New teachers could also make mistakes if they try to do the assessment without guidance. Now, when they, it's common for new teachers to make mistakes, but it's not easy if they make mistakes and they don't know what mistakes they made. So when they don't know what mistakes they made, they think that, okay, I think I did it right. The responses seem good, so I'm going to continue what I did. So because of that, because of this, no guidance and not knowing what mistakes you made, this caused the teachers of lack of competency when it comes to SPA. Now I will give the next one to Yasmin.
Okay, so for this for this reason, uh focus it is focusing on the issue that is poor ICT facilities provided to the teachers. So why is this happening? Firstly, it's because the financial allocation is insufficient for schools to purchase enough ICT facilities for both teachers and students. So government sometimes they have allocated certain amount of money for school and for the schools to purchase ICT facilities. However, most of the advanced ICT facilities, such as the interactive whiteboard, it is too expensive, and sometimes the allocation is not enough to provide sufficient facilities for the teachers. Not only that, some for school areas that are rural, most of the time they have poor connectivities. Even though they have very good ICT facilities, they cannot perform whatever they wanted to due to the poor connectivity. And lastly, system failure and congestion. Because there are too many teachers accessing to the website at once, that's why the website is facing congestion, and sometimes some of the teachers they have to wake up or stay up until late in midnight in order to access the website without any obstruction.
All right, next I'm going to explain the next reason of the reason why the issues emerge. And the next one is complexity in teachers' roles. Like I said earlier, a teachers actually has a lot of responsibilities and they actually have to divide their time in order to fulfill all of the responsibilities. And they are actually what is happening is that overlapping roles between assessor and facilitator. Teachers actually in class they have to be the assessor and also the facilitator. Okay, so in terms of the assessor, they actually becomes an assessor when they administer the assessment. So the confusion happens when teacher actually confuse between assessor with facilitator. Okay, like what we know, facilitating is when you help the students from time to time in maybe in their work, in their homework, or in anything in learning, basically in learning. But then assessor is when teacher assess the pupils. Okay, so what happens is when teachers um, keeps there are some students who always meet their teacher to actually correct them from time to time, especially maybe in their SBA, okay, in their school-based assessment. So they might meet their teacher from time to time to seek for guidance. But actually, teachers cannot do that because their function is to assess. So this is that kind of act is actually facilitating. Okay, so when that happens, it actually develop biases towards the students because some students they don't have the courage to meet the teacher like some people some students do. So it will actually develop biases towards the students. And also teachers might in their determination to help their students to do well extend help um, and end up doing much work for their students. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. All right, the next one is teachers actually have trouble to manage time to accommodate to the needs of SPA due to time constraint. Okay, like we all know, teachers actually have a lot of workloads. Like they have to mark the papers, they have students, they have to plan their lesson, they have to produce a lot of lesson plans and so on. So they have actually trouble to manage their time as teacher. So when they do not have enough time to plan and a proper SPA, then the SPA cannot be administered in school smoothly. So based on the one of the responses taken from Sekhara 9, 2014, in his research acts as a proof that teachers faces difficulties to manage their time due to the heavy workloads. Okay, so let's look at the response uh, that is taken from the research. Okay, this is one of the responses from one of the teachers that he interviewed. So what he or she said is, I learned that the educational philosophy is to produce holistic individuals who possess good elements in the intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical area. And in my opinion, the objectives of SPA is not much different from the previous philosophy, as it also focuses on cognitive, affective, and psychomotor items. I have prior knowledge regarding the main objective SPA, and therefore I feel that I do not have to spend a lot of time getting to know SPA. I do have certain limited interest in finding out more about SPA. I admit that I am not an expert yet in handling SPA, and I confess that at this moment, I am not looking into SBA very deeply as there are other duties to attend to. So basically, from this response, we could see that they have a very low understanding or knowledge on SBA because they perceive SBA as a normal test or as kind of assessment that they have used.
So number 3 is constructive suggestions or alternative solutions to improve the highlighted issue. So going back to the lack of competency and where all experienced teachers they don't want to change and new teachers have no experience. So one solution, collaboration with other teachers. Teachers can learn from one another and grow into better teachers through collaboration, meaning that experienced teachers can teach the new teachers more on their experience, something that could help them adjust more with the assessment with students. And new teachers can teach them about SBA because new teachers actually have learned SBA in their institution or university. Second one is new teachers have mentors to guide them. Now, their mentors could point out the mistakes done by the new teachers. Going back to the new teachers making mistakes on their assessment. So by having mentors, before doing any assessment, SBA assessment with their students, new teachers could actually try to check up with their mentors, so at least they could see if this is considered an SBA assessment or not. Or the teacher could actually point out after this new teacher did their assessment. So now the new teacher can actually know what mistakes they've done, so they don't have to repeat it again. And lastly, experienced teachers need manageable goals related to SPA. The goals could help motivate teachers to try something new in their assessment. Now, it's a bit hard to encourage experienced teachers to try something new. So maybe by giving them manageable goals, simple goals that is related to SPA, it could help them feel a bit motivated or at least let them adjust and try bit by bit with the SBA assessment so that experienced teachers they tend to follow the objective a bit more rather than the new assessment. So maybe this could help them uh, learn SBA a bit better. So the second one, I leave it to Yasmin.
Okay, these are the following solutions that I have found out. And the next one is teachers need to be provided time and space for teachers. Okay, so actually this comes from a bigger level where the government actually have to um, reduce the workloads among teachers. Okay, so teachers actually need quality time to plan assessments to be administered effectively to the students, because the good planning will produce a good result. Okay, right? So actually this is something that is always talked about in our education field, where teachers actually nowadays are not only need to focus on their teaching and learning process, but also in managing files, managing documents, assessing their students, and etc. So I think that teachers need to be given more time in order to plan, to assess and implement SBA in their teaching and learning process better. And the next one is teachers need to understand SBA seriously. Like I have said earlier, based on the responses that we have taken from the excerpt, the the teacher actually show a very low knowledge on SBA. So basically, uh, these kind of teachers actually need to gain more knowledge about SBA instead of making their own perception and uh, understanding on the SBA. So the lack of knowledge in conducting SBA might affect students' progress in learning, because if their teacher themselves does not understand the SBA, what happens to their student? Right. Okay. So I believe that these are the solution that we can do to avoid the issues. Okay. Next, I'll pass to Chin.
Okay, for the solution to solve poor internet facilities and poor ICT facilities in school, the first solution is to use personal laptop and internet access. So for teachers who are capable, okay, means that they are able to get themselves personal laptop and internet access, they should take the initiative to bring it and to use their facilities in school so that they don't have to compete or even rush to use the computer that are provided in the schools. Internet access that the teacher can use. If they use their own internet access, they could be accessing the internet access that is more advanced, means they don't experience congestion of the website if they are using internet access that is very fast and smooth. The second solution is that government needs to replan personal allocation to schools. So sufficient money should be allocated to every school so that they can purchase advanced ICT facilities. With advanced ICT facilities, I'm sure that all the teachers and students, they can enjoy and facilitate the facilities in good use and even make the SPA effective and useful. Not only that, government can also provide the facilities instead of giving them the money, which helps to ease the work of the schools. Next slide. And lastly, there is to plan a schedule or a table for the use of a computer. So teachers can be divided into batches. So when during certain time of the during a certain time, certain teacher will use the website. So by doing so, it will avoid the website from being congested, or even failure will not happen during the assessment of the website. That's all for me. These are the references that our group have used to done the to do this assignment. That's all from us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.